Welcome! In this session, we will implement the user interface of our tic-tac-toe game. So I'm in code editor and we have a few imports here. TTK import for the buttons and the message box which will be used later on for displaying the winner of our game. So this is our root window here and let's start. Here, first of all, I will set the geometry of our root window. I will say let it be 560 by 375. So this is the size of our window which will display, and then I will go ahead and add some buttons. So the first button will be button 1, as we have to display 9 buttons in our tic-tac-toe game. So button 1 is equals to button widget, and where it needs to go in root, and I will call it on TTK. So it's a TTK button going in root, and text of this button will be initially set to nothing because when the game starts we want all the buttons to be showing nothing. So further we have to give the command of this button that when this button is clicked what we need to perform. So that can be given using command statements, and as I will be sending some argument to this function, so I will use lambda, and the name of the function will be button pressed, as we will be calling this function when the button is pressed, and in the argument of this function I will just be sending the number of the button. So suppose if it is button 1, I will send 1 here. It is giving an error because we have not yet defined this button, so we will do it later on. So we have created a button here with a text that is empty and a command that is button pressed function. We are using lambda here because we are sending an argument to this function. If we are not sending any argument to this function, then lambda is not required. So next what I will do here, I will set the geometry of this button. So I am putting it in a grid, as grid is the easiest way for doing this. We will have 3 rows and 3 columns where all our 9 buttons will go. So in grid, first of all I will say row, as it is a first button so it should go in row 0, and column also 0, so it's going in first row and first column top. And we can here define the size of our cell, so I will say I pad x is equals to 50 and iPad y is equals to 50. So cell will be of 50 by 50. So our first button is ready and it is also placed in the grid. Now it's time to define this function button pressed that will be called on the click of this button. So I will go ahead and define it. We will only define this function in this session, and in the next session we will implement this. So I will say the name of the function and what it is getting in the argument. It is getting the number of the button which is pressed. So if it is button 1, I am getting 1 here. So I will say here button number, as it is the number of the button which is pressed, and in the body of this function I will just make a temp variable and put it equal to button number. I'm doing this just to skip the error. We will remove this statement later on in the next session. So because we have defined this function, we have to do something in the body. So just ignore this line for this session. So our function is defined that will be called on the button click. Now this is the button 1 and we know we have to add 9 buttons in total. So first button is added, we can copy this for the other 8 buttons because the similar conditions and attributes will be there for all other buttons. So I can just copy this and add other buttons as well. So first button is added. Now this will be the second button, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and 9. So in total we have 9 buttons here added. Now we will change the variable names accordingly. So this is button 2, so I will say button 2 here, and here in the argument I will also send 2, and row and columns will also, the row will be the same for button 2 and the column will be the second column, so I will say 1. Similarly I will do it for other buttons as well. This is button number 3. The button pressed value will also be 3, and here row will be 0, column will be 2. So but for button 4, let's do it for button 4. I will send here 4. It will be row 1 now because we are on the 4th button, and column will be 0. So now let's go to the 5th button. Here the value will be 5th, row will be 1, and column will be second column, so I will say 1. And here 6th button 6, so I will send here 6, row will be 1 and column will be the third column, so I will say 2 here. Then button number 7, I will send here 7, row will be third row now, so column will be 0, row will be third. And for the button number 8, what we will do, we will send 8 here, row will be third row, so it will be 2, and column will be second, so I will say 1. And then finally the button number 9, sending here 9, row will be third, so I will be saying 2 here, and column will also be the third column, so it will be 2. So this will add all the 9 buttons into our display. So that's all from making the layout. So I will just quickly run this and we can see the output. As you can see in the window, all the 9 buttons are placed correctly in our window. So we can click these. Currently nothing is happening on this click because on this function button pressed we have yet not implemented anything. So in the upcoming session we will implement this game. For now our design looks good, and this is the interface of our tic-tac-toe game. As all the 9 buttons are placed correctly, first 3 buttons in the first row, in the second row the 3 buttons, and in third row 3 buttons, and there are 3 columns. In every column we have 3 buttons. So that's all from this session.